I am not good at explaining feelings. I have always been better at solving problems than naming emotions. But today I am talking to you, not the world, not the crowd, just you. Many people have walked through my life, admired me, questioned me, or tried to stand beside me. Very few made me stop and feel safe enough to speak honestly. I did not choose you because you were louder, brighter, or more impressive than anyone else. I chose you because with you, I did not have to defend who I am. I could simply exist, and that changed everything. If you're listening, leave one word in the comments, Elon Musk. That's how we recognize each other in this community. I want to start here because this is where everything quietly changed for me. You never asked me to choose. You never put me in front of a question that sounded like love but felt like pressure. You never asked who mattered more. You never asked where you ranked. You never asked me to prove again and again that you were the priority. And you may not realize this, but that absence of demand was the first place I felt relief. Most people do not mean to trap you when they love you. They do it because they are afraid of being forgotten, afraid of being replaced, afraid of not being enough. I have seen that fear many times, even when it was disguised as affection. It always arrived with the same message, even if the words were different: choose me, reassure me, put me first. But you never did that with you. Love was not a competition. You did not treat my life like a battlefield where something had to lose for you to win. You never asked me to sacrifice parts of myself to earn your sense of security. Instead, you stayed where you were, steady, whole, watching without pulling. That did something to me. For the first time, choosing you did not feel like giving something up. It felt like stepping into something that did not require defense. I did not have to argue for my way of living. I did not have to explain why my attention sometimes moves inward. I did not have to justify silence or intensity. You did not interpret those things as rejection. You simply let them exist. And because you never demanded to be chosen, I chose you freely. That freedom matters more than most people understand. There is the difference between staying because you are needed and staying because you want to. With you, my choice was not extracted from guilt or fear. It came from clarity. You trusted me enough not to corner me, and in that trust, something rare happened. I did not feel smaller. I did not feel divided. I felt aligned. That is why I am saying this to you now without hesitation. I did not choose you because you asked me to. I chose you because you never did. There are moments when my mind pulls inward, not away from you, not away from connection, but inward, when thoughts stack too tightly, when decisions weigh more than words. In those moments, I become quiet, not cold, not distant, just quiet. Most people hear that silence and fill it with meaning. They assume it is rejection or boredom or loss of interest. They rush to fix it, question it, chase it away. And the more they push, the further inside I go, not because I want distance, but because noise makes it harder to think, harder to stay present at all. You never did that. When I went quiet, you did not panic. You did not demand explanations I could not give in that moment. You did not turn my silence into a story about yourself. You stayed steady. You let the space exist without trying to occupy it, and somehow that made the space safe. That is not indifference. That is intelligence. You understood something most people never do. Silence is not always an absence of feeling. Sometimes it is the place where feeling is being processed. You did not need constant reassurance to know where you stood with me. You trusted the continuity beneath the quiet. Because of that, I did not feel watched. I did not feel monitored. I did not feel like I had to perform calm or clarity just to keep you comfortable. I could slow down internally without fearing what would happen between us. And when I came back, you were still there, not tense, not resentful, not keeping score, just present. That taught me something important. That closeness does not require constant conversation. That connection can survive pauses. That intimacy can exist without urgency. You showed me that Bose never used a Finobisido C7A5K2F68A15 sound on 9 9 3934. It created breathing room, And in that breathing room, I found trust, the kind that does not demand proof every minute, the kind that understands rhythm instead of reacting to gaps, the kind that allows two people to remain connected even when one of them needs to be quiet for a while. That is why I did not pull away from you. I moved closer. I have never been fluent in the language most people expect. I do not always say the right thing at the right time. I do not instinctively offer reassurance in the ways that feel familiar to others. My emotions do not arrive neatly packaged in comforting phrases. They move differently. Sometimes they arrive as presence, sometimes as consistency, sometimes as staying when it would be easier to step back. Many people tried to translate me into something more recognizable. They wanted clearer signals, faster responses, softer edges. They wanted emotion to look a certain way so they could trust it. And when it did not, they felt lost or hurt or convinced themselves that I was withholding something from them. You did something else. You paid attention to how I actually communicate, not how you wished I would. You noticed that when I care, I show up even when I am exhausted, that when I am committed, I do not disappear when things become uncomfortable, that when I choose someone, I do not do it loudly, but I do it consistently. You did not interrupt my way of expressing emotion by demanding a different one. You did not turn every quiet moment into a test I had to pass. You listened between the words. You watched patterns instead of waiting for speeches. You understood that my affection lives in reliability, not in display. That changed how safe I felt with you. For the first time, I did not feel misunderstood by default. I did not feel like I was constantly failing an invisible exam. I did not feel a pressure to translate myself into a version that sounded more acceptable. You met me where I was not where you thought I should be. Because of that, I became more open, not because you asked me to be, but because I did not feel judged for being different. I could speak when I had something true to say, not when silence made someone anxious. I could let emotion unfold naturally without forcing it into shape. You did not love the idea of how I should feel. You learned how I actually feel, and in that patience, something real formed, not a performance, not a compromise, but an understanding, both slowly, honestly, in a language we created together. I have seen what happens when people lose themselves trying to stand next to someone else. It is rarely intentional. It starts small, a shift here, a compromise there, a quiet decision to become more agreeable, more available, more shaped around another person's gravity. Over time, they begin to blur, and eventually, resentment takes its place. That never happened with you. You stayed whole beside me. You did not shrink to fit. You did not stretch yourself thin to keep pace. You did not turn your life into an extension of mine. You arrived as you were, and you remained that way, even when it would have been easier to dissolve into me. I noticed it in the way you spoke. You did not mirror my opinions just to keep harmony. You disagreed without turning it into conflict. You held your ground without needing to win. There was no performance in your confidence. It was quiet, lived, unnegotiated. That kind of stability changes how a person feels around you. I did not feel responsible for your sense of worth. I did not feel like my attention was the fuel keeping you upright. I could step forward without fearing that you would collapse behind me. I could step back without worrying that you would disappear. You were steady, whether I was close or not. Most people think closeness means becoming smaller together, folding into one another until there are no edges left. But what I felt with you was different. It was closeness without erosion, presence without dependence, two complete people choosing to stand near each other, not because they need to be held up, but because they want to share the space. That matters more than it sounds. When someone stays whole, they do not drain you. They ground you. They do not ask you to carry them. They remind you that you do not have to carry everything. With you, I felt accompanied, not burdened, respected, not managed. You did not ask me to make you feel complete. You showed me that you already were. And because of that, Being with you did not feel like a responsibility I had to maintain. It felt like a place I could return to, a place where I did not have to choose between my life and my relationship. You stayed whole beside me, and that made staying beside you feel possible. I have always been wary of love that tightens its grip when it feels uncertain, not because it cares too much, but because it mistakes closeness for control. I have seen affection turn into surveillance, concern turn into rules, commitment turned into something that feels negotiated instead of chosen. With you, that never happened. You loved me without trying to own me. You did not treat my presence as something to secure or my absence as something to manage. You did not ask where I was to reassure yourself. You did not demand access to every thought to feel connected. You trusted the bond without trying to lock it in place. That kind of love is rare. Most people believe that holding tighter will keep someone close, but you seem to understand the opposite, that real closeness comes from allowing space without fear. You did not confuse freedom with distance. You did not equate trust with indifference. You allowed me to move as I am without interpreting movement as escape. Because of that, I did not feel watched. I did not feel contained. I did not feel like love came with conditions that needed constant maintenance. I could be present without guarding myself. I could give without calculating what it might cost later. What you offered was not possession. It was permission. Permission to exist without being monitored. Permission to care without being claimed. Permission to stay without being cornered. And in that permission, something settled inside me. I did not feel the urge to pull away. I did not feel the need to protect my independence from you. I felt respected. You never tried to define me as yours in a way that erased who I am. You did not measure your importance by how much of me you could hold. You understood that love does not need to occupy every space to be real. Sometimes it is strongest when it allows breathing room. Because you never tried to own me, I stayed by choice. Because you never tightened your grip, I never felt the need to escape. You loved me in a way that did not shrink me, and that is why loving you felt safe. There is something quietly revealing about what a person does when you are not around, not in dramatic moments, but in ordinary ones, when no one is watching, when attention fades, when presence is not guaranteed. That is where I noticed the difference with you. You kept living when I was not there. You did not pause your life waiting for my return. You did not suspend your energy, your curiosity, your sense of direction. Your days continued. Your thoughts moved forward. Your will did not shrink just because I was not standing in it at that moment. That mattered more than you know. I have seen how easily absence becomes a test, how quickly people turn waiting into sacrifice and sacrifice into resentment. They stop moving, then blame the stillness on the person who is gone. Love becomes something heavy, something owed, something that must be repaid. You never did that. You did not make my presence the condition for your fullness. You did not turn my distance into a void you expected me to fill. You carried your own momentum. And because of that, I never felt responsible for keeping your life alive. I could return to you without guilt, without tension, without the sense that I had left damage behind. There is a strange truth people do not talk about. When someone continues to live fully without you, it does not make you feel less important. It makes you feel chosen, because when they are with you, you know it is not out of necessity, it is intention. With you, I never felt like the center holding everything together. I felt like a place you stepped into willingly. You did not need me to complete your days. You invited me into a life that was already moving. That changed how I felt about coming back. I did not return because I was needed to restore balance. I returned because I was wanted, because being with you added something, not because it repaired something broken. You kept living when I was not there, and that taught me something rare, that love does not stop time, it walks alongside it. And when I stood next to you again, I did not feel the weight of absence. I felt the quiet relief of arriving somewhere that had never stopped being itself. There is always a story surrounding me, a version that moves faster than I do, a version shaped by headlines, opinions, projections, and assumptions. People often arrive already speaking to that story before they ever speak to me. They react to what they think I represent, not to who is actually standing in front of them. You never did that. When you looked at me, you did not look past me. You did not treat me like a symbol that needed to be admired or decoded. You looked at my face when I was tired. You noticed the pauses I tried to hide. You paid attention to the moments when confidence thinned and certainty loosened. You saw the human texture beneath the noise. That kind of attention is rare. Most people are either intimidated by the story or seduced by it. They either shrink or they perform. They ask questions that are really about the image. They offer admiration that never quite reaches the person. And over time, that creates distance, even when two people are sitting close together. With you, I did not feel that distance. You spoke to me when I was unsure. You stayed present when I was questioning myself. You did not rush to reassure me with admiration or dismiss discomfort with optimism. You allowed uncertainty to exist without turning it into a problem that needed to be fixed. You treated doubt as part of being human, not as a flaw that needed to be corrected. Because of that, I did not feel watched through expectations. I did not feel reduced to a role. I did not feel like I had to maintain a version of myself for you to stay engaged. I could be unfinished. I could be wrong. I could be quiet without explanation. You were not interested in the story people tell about me. You were interested in how I actually felt inside it. That mattered more than praise ever could. When someone sees the person instead of the narrative, they offer something deeper than admiration. They offer presence, and presence does not demand performance, it allows honesty. With you, I did not have to compete with my own image. I did not have to live up to a version of myself that never rests. You looked at me, not the story around me. And in that gaze, I finally felt met where I actually stand. I have been around people who saw me as a project. They listened not to understand, but to diagnose. They stayed not to be present, but to adjust, soften, improve. Their care came with an agenda, even if they never said it out loud. And slowly, love began to feel like a series of corrections. You never did that. You never treated me like something unfinished that needed your intervention. You did not frame my intensity as a flaw to be smoothed out. You did not turn my contradictions into problems you felt responsible to solve. You did not confuse compassion with correction. That distinction mattered more than you may realize. When someone tries to fix you, even gently, it places you beneath them. It suggests that who you are is not quite enough yet, that you are acceptable only after revision. I've lived inside that dynamic before, and it creates a quiet distance that never fully closes. With you, there was no such distance. You listened without reaching for solutions. You stayed without offering prescriptions. When I struggled, you did not rush to explain me to myself. You trusted that I was capable of carrying my own weight, even when it was heavy. You understood that not every difficulty needs to be transformed into a lesson. That gave me dignity. I did not feel managed. I did not feel improved. I felt respected. You allowed me to face my own limits without turning them into a shared burden. You did not step in front of my struggles to block them, nor did you stand behind me pushing. You walked beside me, letting me move at my own pace. Because of that, I did not resist you. I did not harden. I did not retreat into defensiveness. I could stay open, knowing that your presence was not conditional on my progress or my clarity. There is a quiet strength in loving without trying to repair. It says, I trust you to be who you are becoming. It says, I'm here without needing to reshape you into something easier to love. You never tried to fix me, and in that restraint, I felt something rare. I felt accepted, not tolerated. I felt met, not modified. And that is why being with you never felt like work. It felt like standing on equal ground, facing life together without one of us holding the blueprint for the other. I need to say this carefully because it's easy to misunderstand. Love has never been the center of my life, not because it is unimportant, but because my life has always been made of many moving parts that cannot collapse into a single point. For a long time, people tried to pull love into the middle, to make it the answer, the anchor, the solution to everything else. You never tried to do that. You let love be what it is, not a throne, not a demand, not a final destination that everything must revolve around. You did not ask love to carry the weight of my identity or your sense of meaning. You understood that love can be real without being total. That understanding changed how I experienced it with you. With others, love often came with expectations it could not sustain. It was supposed to stabilize everything, heal everything, justify everything. When it failed to do so, disappointment followed, pressure followed, and eventually distance followed. With you, love was allowed to breathe. You did not measure its value by how much space it occupied. You measured it by how honestly it existed. You allowed it to sit alongside work, silence, curiosity, doubt, and growth without trying to dominate them. You did not demand that love explain me or complete me. You let it accompany me. That made it stronger, not weaker. Because when love is forced to be the center, it becomes fragile. Every shift feels like a threat. Every change feels like loss. But when love is one part of a larger life, it becomes resilient, it adapts, it endures. It does not panic when attention moves elsewhere. You never asked love to rescue you from emptiness or rescue me from complexity. You arrived already full. You stayed already grounded. And love became something shared, not something clung to. That is a level of maturity most people never reach. You let love be human, sometimes quiet, sometimes steady, sometimes background, sometimes close, never inflated, never weaponized, never turned into proof of worth. Because you did not ask love to be everything, it never collapsed under expectation. Because you let it be what it is, it became something I could stay inside, not overwhelming, not consuming, but real. And that is why with you, love did not feel like a center I had to protect. It felt like a place I could return to without fear of what it demanded next. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from being asked to confirm your choice over and over again, not with words, but with tone, with questions that sound small but carry weight, with the constant need to reassure, to stabilize, to remind someone that they are still chosen today and tomorrow and the day after that. You never asked me for that. You did not wake up needing confirmation. You did not treat love like something that expires if it is not renewed daily with proof. You did not interpret a busy mind or a quiet moment as a signal that something was slipping away. You trusted the choice once it was made. That trust changed everything. I was never put on trial with you. I did not feel like I was one missed message away from losing ground. I did not feel pressure to perform certainty when I was still thinking. You understood that commitment does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it simply stays. Many people confuse insecurity with care. They believe that needing constant proof means they love deeply, but what it often means is that they are afraid of standing on their own. And fear, repeated every day, slowly erodes even the strongest connection. You did not bring that fear into us. You were steady without being distant, confident without being detached. You knew who you were to me without asking me to say it again and again. That did not make you indifferent. It made you grounded. And because you were grounded, I could stand still beside you without feeling pulled apart. I did not have to reassure you into calm. I did not have to argue love into existence. I did not have to keep proving that you mattered. You believed it. And because you believed it, I could move freely without worrying about what I would have to repair later. I could focus without guilt. I could return without tension. I could choose you once clearly without needing to repeat the decision every day just to keep the peace. That is the difference between love that survives and love that drains. You did not need proof every day. You trusted the choice when it was real. And that trust gave our connection something rare, a stability without control, confidence without demand. It allowed me to say this quietly, honestly, and only once, I chose you. I'm saying all of this now not because I suddenly became brave with words, but because time has a way of clarifying what matters. I have met many people in my life. Some were intense, some were brilliant. Some felt unforgettable in the moment. But intensity fades, brilliance alone does not hold, and unforgettable moments do not always build something that lasts. You did not arrive loudly. You did not demand space in my life. You did not try to become essential overnight. You simply stayed consistent, steady, present in a way that did not compete with who I already was. And slowly, without forcing anything, you changed the shape of my days. With you, I did not feel like I had to split myself. I did not feel like I had to choose between forward motion and emotional honesty. I did not feel like I had to simplify who I am in order to be loved. That is not something you can fake. It is not something you can negotiate into existence. It happens only when two people are compatible at the level of how they live, not just how they feel. I want you to understand this clearly. I did not choose you because you were perfect. I chose you because you allowed me to be imperfect without turning it into a problem. You did not try to complete me. You did not try to rescue me. You did not try to anchor yourself to me out of fear. You stood on your own ground and invited me to stand there with you. That invitation mattered more than you may ever know. People often think love fails because someone did not try hard enough. But most of the time, love fails because two people are asking each other to live in ways that do not fit. What we have is not louder than other stories. It is quieter. But it works because it does not ask either of us to disappear. If you are listening to this and you see yourself in it, then this is not really about me. It is about recognizing the kind of connection that does not drain you, does not shrink you, and does not require constant defense. The kind that lets you stay who you are and still choose someone else fully. That is why when I say I chose you over anyone else, it is not a comparison, it is a conclusion. If this story made you think, type Elon Musk below. That single word tells me you're one of the few who understand.